trading deadline is closing in, all of that kind of converging at once. So that's where we are in the season, and this is what happens at this time of year. Teams sort of recharge at the break. They come out, oftentimes can take a little bit of time to get your footing, but you're now in the second half. You are now in a playoff type of run or drive. The trading deadline's coming up, and all these things converge at once. So with that in mind, and Matt, forgive me, I don't know if you just want to say hello to people quickly because I'm yammering on and on. But we had Jeff Passan on the program the other night to talk about something he reported earlier in the week, that it's entirely possible the Red Sox stand pat at this deadline. It became really a philosophical discussion about how the Red Sox run their operation, what they believe in, what they value. And I'll tell you what, we'll play you part of it from the other night. So here's Jeff Passan.
And Matt, just to go back to efficiency here, and I think this is a really important contextual point. Most teams operate that way now, and a lot of the really, really good organizations, and I'm going to throw the Milwaukee Brewers out there, and I understand the Red Sox have manifold more resources than the Brewers could ever hope to have. Yep. But when you're trying to operate efficiently, you don't look at a single season as being necessarily like of great paramount importance unless your players are telling you this season, and telling you not through words, but through their play, that this season is something that you need to go spend capital on. The Red Sox, they're trying to build something that is sustainable, and that's a really hard thing to do. And it's even harder when you have budgetary constraints that are put in place by ownership. I think if the Red Sox had a bigger budget, and if they were back, well into the luxury tax like they have been in past seasons, it's a completely different story. Go out at that point and spend some of that prospect capital. But if there are no promises that the budget's going to expand, you have to have a decent balance of those young players and those expensive players.
Okay, so there you go. That is really the essence of the discussion. Efficiency versus winning. Can you do both? Okay, that's what we talked about with Jeff Passan. So let me start with this, because I do have a bigger picture question that I want to throw before Matt McCarthy, and I want to throw before all of you as well, as, again, the Red Sox get ready to face the Dodgers here this weekend at Fenway. What did you think of Passan's comments? And certainly, we've talked a lot about them this week in terms of what the Red Sox have become, what they're interested in. They're interested in being a business first and a ball club second.
Yeah, it's concerning. How can you not be concerned about that? That's not what you want to hear as a fan, because most importantly, Maz, I think it ignores the context of what this team is. I don't want to hear about 2027. I've heard about 2025 for the last 5 years. Like, you're here, it's go time. It's time to start spending some of that prospect capital. And I do think Breslow's willing to do that. The way they approached this past offseason was different. They traded Kyle Teal for Garrett Crochet, and then they extended Garrett Crochet. They got a good deal on Bregman because it's a 1 year deal. It's a series of 1 year deals, but they spent more money on Bregman than they had spent on anybody in recent years. So there was a bit of a shift. I just don't want to hear now that, well, we need to be efficient. And my concern is that this is a sign that perhaps the market for controllable starters is not developing. And now they're going back to this mindset of, well, we can't give up assets for a rental. To which I say, why not? You already have so many assets. Your best young minor league players are essentially all here at this point. You're telling me we can't trade the password for a starter who's going to help you get to the playoffs, even if he isn't going to be here next year, that starter? Like, we can't do that? Well, guess what? There's no place for the password, or there's no place for the minor league guys that you're talking about bringing up, and you're talking about giving up these assets. Like, that's just not looking at the big picture and the small picture. This team should be in a position where they should be attempting to win and contend now, and you should be willing to overpay for that in regards to your assets, but the computer model is going to say you can't do that. So I'm concerned by what I heard there from Passan for sure.
Do you think they want to make any sort of deal with short-term focus?
No.
Me neither.
No, and that might be the only thing that's out there. Joe Ryan might not move. So that's you can't control whether Joe Ryan moves. You can then control whether you pivot to, a Merrill Kelly, a Zach Gallen, Seth Lugo, one of these rental starters. They should be willing to do that. I'm not saying you give up Christian Campbell for that or you trade Marcelo Meyer for that, but there are guys in this system that you can trade for rentals who will still help. I am in on the idea of a rental because it will help your team now because the cost for a rental is less. And you have to be willing to give up something to get something. And that's an attitude I'm not sure the Red Sox quite have.
So, Matt, I have said over and over again, I want a player with term. I want a player who has years on his contract that they can add to this group and use for years to come. If you tell me that guy's not available and that the only option for the Red Sox at this deadline is a rental, I'd rather have a rental than do nothing.
I agree.
Okay, so that I would agree with you on. I want someone with term first. Because, again, I think part of the reason to do a deal now for me is that you can integrate a new player to what should be your nucleus for the next, call it 3 or 4 years. And, again, I've said this a million times. I'm talking about Meyer, Anthony, Rafaela, Abreu, Bayo, Crochet, go right down the list. All these guys are basically 25 and under. They're all part of your core. They need to start playing big games. The fan base needs to see big games. We need to see playoff caliber baseball, something where games where something is on the line. And I think we saw some of the buzz that the Red Sox can bring back to this city and the ballpark when we saw them playing that 10-game winning streak. At the end of that streak, that Tampa series was fun. We haven't had a series like that here in a long time. And certainly it's been a while since they've won 10 in a row. Now, several weeks ago, I was talking to Chris Gasper on Felger and Maz, and Gasper's with us every Friday. He was with us today, as many of you know. But I was talking to Chris Gasper, and I asked him, do you believe that Alex Cora believes in the organization? Does Alex Cora believe in the organization? Chris Gasper said no. I said, I think the way I said it was, do you think Cora believes in the organization? And Gasper said no. And I think there are a lot of people that agree with him. So now my question is the same to you, Matt, to the listeners, to Red Sox fans. Do you, but I'm asking about you, I'm not asking about Cora. Do you believe in the organization?
No, but I also don't believe in Alex Cora.
Okay, believe Cora out of it for the moment. What I'm saying is, I asked whether or not Cora believed in the organization. Do you believe in the organization?
No, I don't.
Okay.
How could you, as a Red Sox fan, based on the way the last 5 years have gone? Were there some signs this past offseason? Yes. Do I want to believe in the organization? Yes. Do I think Breslow has the ability to be bold? Yeah, I do. Do I actually believe in some of the things he's done from a baseball perspective? Yeah, I mean, he had a good offseason from a baseball perspective. I don't know if I believe in him with his interpersonal communication skills. So as a result, I don't know if I trust him to get a deal done, because is he going to be able to work with somebody else to get a deal done? We keep going back to Joe Ryan. Well, he basically blasted the Twins publicly a week ago. You think the Twins are going to want to do a deal with Craig Breslow based on the way that all went down? So he might want to make the right baseball move. I just don't know if he can make the right baseball move. You know what I mean?
Of course, yes. And so if I were to ask you, what's your biggest gripe with the Red Sox right now, what would it be?
My biggest gripe is it feels like they changed their philosophies, and it feels like this past offseason they were in on something, and now I'm hearing that it's about sustainability and efficiency again. So it's like we're going back to that thing. It's that they, in the end, are not committed enough to winning. Plain and simple, man.
I mean, I think, I think you hit it right on the head. I think this is the number one question with the organization. Do they want to win badly enough? And I'm not sure they do anymore. So this is the problem with long-term thinking. Nothing is a big deal. So that when you put a long-term emphasis on everything, you are accepting blips and bumps and problems and flaws and mishaps and you just shrug them off and say, well, it's really not about this one specific event. Nothing is ever about one specific event. It's about the bigger picture. So, well, we just lost 2 out of 3 of the Phillies. Yeah, but, we're over 500. We're going to be one of the 10 best teams in baseball this year. Maybe. Or 12 best. Okay, well, you lost 2 out of 3 of the Cubs before that. Yeah, well, that's 2 and 4 of the week, but we had won 10 in a row before that. It's not about the small sample. It's about the large sample. And when you look at it that way, again, there's never urgency to do anything because it's always about the long haul. So, good way to raise kids, bad way to run a baseball team. Or, for that matter, a football team or any sort of sports franchise. And this whole idea that, you can emphasize the long term and still be the Red Sox to me, is wrong. I just don't think you can be efficient and try to win championships at the same time. Now, I believe the Red Sox should be knocking on the door every year. Or pretty damn near close. You want to tell me that every once in a while, as Theo Epstein said, using a term that became, synonymous with sort of pulling one over on the fans, the bridge year? Yeah, you have to have bridge years every now and then. You do. Okay, we know that. But that doesn't mean you should be 81 and 81. The bridge year, the part that I find amusing is the bridge year that caused all this, or at least some of it, was 2006, and the Red Sox
2010 as well.
Well, 2010 as well, but in 2006 it was before they termed it a bridge year, but they had a bridge year.
They did, yeah.
They won 86 games. Now that's their ceiling. So that used to be their floor. Now it's their ceiling. And that's not good enough. It's just not good enough. So, 617-779-0985. McCarthy's in. We'll play more for you from Jeff Passan. Fill you in a little bit on what's going on over at the ballpark. Marcelo Meyer has gone on the injured list with a wrist problem, which should concern you. We'll touch on that. And a couple of trades made in Major League Baseball, including one that the Red Sox probably could have made, and it was a player they were interested in. We'll fill you in on that. Don't go anywhere.
The Baseball Hour with Tony Mass.
Hey, it's Maz. This week's Bright Spot, powered by Boston Solar, comes from Wednesday night in Philadelphia. After trailing 5-0, the Red Sox powered back, scoring 6 runs in the 5th inning and finishing it off with a Carlos Narvaez home run in the 11th to win the game 9-8 and avoid a sweep at the hands of the Phillies. So always make sure that you have enough power with Boston Solar. Boston built, Boston trusted. That's Boston Solar.
The state just left nearly $1 billion on the table in a backroom deal. MassDOT awarded a 35-year lease to operate the Pikes Travel Plazas to a foreign majority private equity-owned company, costing the Commonwealth up to $900 million in lost revenue. That's money that could fix roads and reduce toll fees. Waltham-based Global Partners had a better offer, but the public never saw a fair comparison. The time to act is now. Visit globalp.com/turnpike to sign the petition and demand transparency. That's globalp.com/turnpike. Let's keep our dollars local.
Imagine a life where clear, crisp vision is always at your fingertips. No glasses, no hassle. With advanced refractive surgery from the team at Boston Vision, you can correct your reading vision quickly, safely, and effectively. The Boston Vision team of expert surgeons use cutting-edge technology to help you see near and far with ease, giving you the freedom you deserve. So what are you waiting for? Book a free consultation online today at bostonvision.com.
despite all the injuries they've sustained?
I mean, they're very talented. You know, they got the best athlete in the universe playing for them. He's leading off. One of the best baseball players in the leagues. He's not having a great season, but he still contributes. The first baseman is a Hall of Famer. The catcher, he's one of the best hitting catchers in the league. Pages has come up and done an amazing job. Teoscar Hernandez is a proven big leaguer. Miguel Rojas is a great shortstop, pretty solid. And whenever Kike pitches, it means that they win.
18. And, you might say, well, that team wasn't that good, or they were stacked. Benintendi was good back then. Jackie Bradley was one of the best defensive players in the game. Certainly, J.D. Martinez was in at a force in the middle of the lineup. Mookie Betts, Xander Bogaerts, they were stacked. Let alone Chris Sale, David Price. They were loaded. And that typically is, what a championship baseball team looks like. It's not 100%. But now, look, I don't expect them to be the Dodgers, have a payroll approaching $400 million. The Red Sox aren't going to do that. Okay, it's just not the same. But the Dodgers are committed. It's not just about the money. It's about the attitude. It's about being ready to compete for a championship every year no matter what happens. And I just don't feel like the Red Sox are that anymore.
Yeah, and that's why this trading deadline, Maz, is so huge, right? Especially coming off the Devers trade, because if they take on money, they go over the luxury tax, they do something big, then you say, you know what, it's not lip service. They traded Devers because they wanted him out of the clubhouse, and they're going to use that money and they're going to make the team better. And that's coming off an offseason in which they traded for and signed Garrett Crochet, which is no small thing given the contract that they handed out to him. They signed Bregman. So it felt like they were trending in that direction. And for them to potentially go the other way and not do something big at this deadline, it would hurt. It would absolutely hurt as a Red Sox fan, especially given the state of the competition in the American League, what this team could actually accomplish if they went out and added a bona fide number 2 starter, if they went out and added, somebody who could, slide into, closer to the middle of the order, play some first base for them. Again, I don't know if that trade is out there for them at this point, but there are, of course, ways they can make this team better, significantly better at this deadline. And if they simply choose not to, you have every right to be extremely upset as a Red Sox fan, and I will be.
Do you expect them to do anything big?
No.
Me neither.
I expect them to do something small. I expect it to be a little bit bigger than what happened last year. But what I think is going to happen, Maz, is I think we're going to be sitting here the night of the trading deadline, and the Red Sox are going to say the prices were too high and guys with term didn't move, and we didn't want to sacrifice our future for too many rentals. To which I would say, you're missing the point. This team is worthy of an investment, even if it's a rental. This team is worthy of that, and I don't want to hear how you didn't trade the 8th prospect in your system, a guy who's blocked here and is never going to play, for a rental, and that the cost was too high. Like that, I know that's coming in some way, shape, or form. You know why, Maz? Because the cost is always high at the deadline, especially when you get up to and at the deadline. It always costs a lot to bring in a rental. It costs even more. The cost to bring in somebody like Joe Ryan is going to be astronomical, and I'm going to be hearing how it wouldn't be prudent and it wouldn't be responsible for them to make that type of move. Well, eventually, if you don't do something casually irresponsible, which is the way I'm going to call it, you're never going to win in baseball, because baseball is a long-term sport that requires a short-term mentality at certain points, because in the end, October and getting to October is short sample size, small sample size baseball. So and you need the horses to win that.
I want to get to some of these prices that have already been paid out in Major League Baseball, go over some of the deals that have been made here in the last couple of days, and we'll try to assess whether or not the Red Sox could have paid them. First, though, Jake in Rhode Island on the Red Sox pitching. Get Jake.
Hey, Matt, how's it going, man?
Good. What do you got?
I just got a question. I was wondering if you think if the Red Sox do actually grow some kahunas and they pay a pitcher, do you think Tanner Houck could fill the role that we need late in the bullpen?
So, Jake, honestly, what I feel about Tanner Houck right now is that he is so messed up that I almost want to just flush out the whole season and not count on him for anything.
He's been shut down indefinitely.
Okay, so again,
It's not happening.
well, there's that. There's physical issues too. On top of it, I'm just not sure you can rely on him. So to me, I feel like it's gone already. And even if he were to come back and pitch, like think of what it would take for you to put him in a spot where there's some sort of trust in his ability to get a big out.
No way.
So like I was talking about Jordan Hicks earlier in the week. Would you put that guy in a situation of any consequence?
Not in my life, man.
Of course not.
No way.
So now Cora used him in the extra inning game earlier in the week. He obviously blew the game. There was another catcher's interference that factored in there as well. But the guy can't throw a strike under pressure. And as I spoke about in the ESPN game the other night, when he does throw a strike, incredibly, despite the fact that it's 100 miles an hour, it gets hit. So now Cora put him in the 7th inning the other night, but again, pitched him against the bottom of the lineup and got him out of there quickly. As soon as someone got on and the lefties were coming up for Philadelphia, and I'm talking about Schwarber now and Bryce Harper, out of the game he came. Cora wasn't going to leave him in there. I think, Tanner Houck is going to would have ended up in a similar situation, I think. So to me, he wasn't a guy that you could count on. Now, as far as the trade, I'll tell you what, hold that thought. Let's bring in Anthony in Scottsdale and Jaron Duran. Go ahead, Anthony.
Hey, Maz, just a quick question for you. I missed most of the show today, but why would the Red Sox quickly reject that trade? I feel like Dylan Cease would be everything and more that they need to add to this team this year.
So, Anthony, do you know what kind of year Dylan Cease is having?
Yeah, I know. It's not the Dylan Cease of the past, but he's got nasty stuff.
Okay, so look, I agree with you, but I would also tell you that, and look, I think there were financial elements in this deal too. So this one was out there. I think Sean McAdam reported it. Matt, the deal that allegedly was on the table was Jaron Duran to the Padres for Dylan Cease, who will be a free agent at the end of the year and is making about, $14 million or something like that this season. A minor league catcher in the Padres system that has been highly regarded.
Yep, Ethan Salas, he's a top 25 prospect in the sport.
But has had a bad year, and he's in Double-A, right?
He is. He's young, but they say he's good defensively, but he has not hit. I think he's hitting like a $180 in Double-A, so that's a real concern.
Okay, and then there was also a pitching prospect that might have been in the deal. Now, again, pitching prospect, I use that term loosely, so I'll call it a minor league pitcher. The Red Sox rejected the deal out of hand. Should they have?
Yes, for now. But if it comes down to a week from now, and that's the best deal you have for Duran, I think you seriously consider that. Because, again, I think one of their best moves they can make over the course of the next week is finding a trade partner for Duran. The Padres, we have had multiple reports that they're extremely interested in Duran, which is why I think the Red Sox have it out there that they rejected that deal. There have been rumors about Duran maybe going to Kansas City in a Seth Lugo deal. I think the Red Sox are rightfully trying to drum up more value for Duran in a trade. But if it comes down to a week from now, and I'm getting a catching prospect still with a lot of potential and a pitcher who can help me this year, you have to strongly consider that for Duran. Because, again, might you get a little bit more for Duran in the offseason? Yes, but what is the cost to missing out on not improving this team now? I feel like the attitude is, well, you need to maximize the asset. You need to maximize the asset. Or why would you overpay for a pitcher now when you might not have to pay that high a price in the offseason? And the answer is, you're going to have that pitcher for a stretch run, a playoff run in an American League that sucks. So I'm willing to pay a little bit more or theoretically get a little bit less for Duran if I'm getting something back that helps me this year. Your concerns about Cease are valid, but that's the type of deal the Red Sox should be looking at, Mass.
So I think that may be all they're left with, although we certainly get time here. I mean, today's the 25th. The deadline is now basically a week away. So we'll have a better understanding of the closer we get. Again, I would like a guy with term if that's what they're angling for, and they come up with a deal. The beauty of this scenario is that we'll know in a week. We'll know whether or not they could have gotten that Dylan, whether they should have made that Dylan Cease deal. We'll know. Now, again, I'd like something, more long-lasting, as I'm sure they would. So we'll see how that shakes out. Again, I said this earlier. There was another deal made, though, that I think the Red Sox easily could have paid the price for a positional player who is under contract for 2026. We'll tell you who that was when we come back, and whether the Red Sox could have matched the price for him. Matt McCarthy's Get Your Headlines. Don't go anywhere.
Essential Sports Hub headline presented by Celsius Energy Drinks.
The Red Sox opening up a 3-game set tonight at Fenway with the Dodgers. Brian Bayo on the mound.
operating that way. This is the problem. So one of my pet peeves, Matt, let me just say this quickly, and then I want to get to some of the trades that have been made and what the prices were for some of those players. I see a couple of you on the line. We'll get to you as well, 617-779-0985. But one thing that goes up my ass when we start talking about trading prospects is this idea that somehow every guy in your system is a prospect. They're not. This is something fans get wrong. Oh, we traded that guy? I don't want to trade that guy. I don't want to trade this guy. Well, then you don't want to trade anybody. If you keep them all, you're effectively the Tampa Bay Rays. Or, I'll throw Milwaukee in there now because they're the flavor of the month. But you get the idea. Those teams have no choice. They can't pay for talent. One of the advantages the Red Sox have is that they can pay for talent. So they should be able to do both. They should be able to draft and develop, and they should be able to pay for players. So that if they hit a little rut in their farm system, they can go out and plug a hole with a free agent. That's the beauty of having the money. If you have the money and you don't want to use the buying power of it, what's the point? And when I say the buying power, the power to go out and get a guy in a multi-year deal and overpay him because you can. That's the point of having it. If you're going to focus on being efficient, you end up signing Walker Buehler and Garrett Richards and James Paxton and Liam Hendricks, and it's just you sprinkle your money around on a bunch of retreads who are coming off of injuries and their reclamation projects. You don't ever really put the money into Max Fried, who would help you. So that's where I sort of get off the bus. It drives me crazy.
I'm not convinced that's what's going on here, though, Maz, because this offseason the Red Sox did spend the money on Garrett Crochet. They did spend the money on Alex Bregman.
Not really.
Okay. Well, they spent $180 million on a guy who had thrown like 300 innings. So
okay, that's different. Crochet, I'll give you.
I can't criticize them for that. It's the model, though, because they're going to put a trade into the model, as Jeff Passan says, and it's going to say, well, giving up Franklin Arias and Yostingston Garcia for this pitcher is too much, and this is an underwater trade, and you shouldn't do that. Let me ask you, where's the password going to play, Maz? Where's he going to play? So the model doesn't take that into consideration.
Of course.
Where's Franklin Arias going to play in 2 years? Where's he going to play? Tell me right now. Is he going to play shortstop? Because Marcelo Meyer is going to be playing shortstop if he can stay healthy. Christian Campbell is theoretically playing somewhere. We don't know where yet. You're going to run out of space, but the model doesn't take that into account. I'm not convinced it's the money stuff at this deadline. I'm convinced it's the analytical approach to the way you want to look at a trade. And you're going to run it through Carmine, you're going to run it through whatever, and it's going to say, you're losing value on this trade, don't do it. The fact of the matter is, you're almost always going to lose value on a trade at the deadline because that's the way it works. If you're trying to add, teams know you're trying to add. There are very few sellers in baseball at this point. You need to be willing to overpay. But you have to ask yourself, is it going to crush our organization if we're going to overpay here, if we're going to lose on value? And let's just use the password for an example. Your model might say trading the password for a rental pitcher is a bad idea. It probably is in a vacuum, but we're not dealing with this in a vacuum. He has nowhere to play. You need a starting pitcher. Isn't that worth it?
Of course it is.
They don't look at it that way.
No, they don't.
That's the bigger issue. It's not the money, and the money's a factor, but that's an even bigger problem. It's the analytical model, because it doesn't take into account the reality of the situation and the fact that it's worth it for this team to go out and add.
So you just reminded me of a situation years ago that when the Chicago Cubs traded for, and Theo was the GM at the time, when they traded for Aroldis Chapman, and they made that deal, Theo Epstein said something to the effect of, and it might have actually, he may have said it before the deal, but sometimes you have to be willing to lose a trade to help your team. And I think that is, in essence, the decision the Red Sox are faced with now. They want to win the trade. They want the machine to tell them it's a good trade. And the fact is that sometimes you can help your team by losing a trade. You don't have to win the trade. You have to win the championship. So it's a step. It's a small sacrifice towards a bigger thing. So that one, I want to get to some of these deals that have been made. One in particular, which is the Josh Naylor trade from Arizona to Seattle, because the Red Sox have been looking for a first baseman. Let me just bring in Dan from Maine here quickly. Dan, what do you got?
Hey, I just thought of this. This is not what I was calling about, but John Henry tipped his hand after 2018. He was interviewed. He said sometimes you need to finish last before you go to first. And I think that set the whole philosophy that we're seeing now. The Padres are in win now mode. The Twins probably are not. What is the feasibility of a 3-team trade? Duran to the Padres, prospects that aren't going to help the Padres this year over to Minnesota, and then Ryan going over to the Sox.
Yeah, so sorry, Dan. I thought you were going to say something else on top of that. Look, anything's possible at this time of year. Yes, you could make a deal like that. Send prospects from the Padres to the Twins. They get what they want. Maybe the Red Sox even throw something else in the deal that goes in that direction. And then Joe Ryan comes here and Jarren Duran goes to San Diego. Sure, anything's possible. I will allow for all of that. My question is, do the Red Sox have the appetite to actually do it?
Yeah, I think they do with Duran. The question is finding a trade partner. Like, do the Twins ultimately want to move Joe Ryan, and do they want to move him here after what Breslow said, obviously, about them publicly? I don't know. But the 3-team model does make sense for Duran, because theoretically, if you're trading Duran to somebody, that team is looking for Jarren Duran because they think Duran can help them win this year. So they're probably not going to want to give you a number 2 starting pitcher in return. So you need to work another team into that thing. So I think that makes all the sense in the world. It does seem to me like they are willing to move Duran. They should be willing to move Duran. Alex Cora came out today before the game, Maz, and said that Cedar Rafaela is going to play a lot at second base. Ideally, Cedar Rafaela is not playing at second base. It's nice to have that versatility, but your best team is Rafaela in center, Anthony in left, Abreu in right. And your best team is Duran going out the door for a pitcher in return or a first baseman in return.
So the fact that Rafael is playing second base, and I recognize obviously they have some injuries. David Hamilton's in the minors, and now Meyer is Meyer's on the injured list. Do you think there's any element to this of people wanting to see Duran in center field?
Possibly. I hope so. That's a good thought, Maz. Really good thought, because it did not look good in Chicago last week. I'll tell you that, after he tried to Eugene Wilson Masataka Yoshida in left field. So, yeah, maybe. I mean, he's probably better in center than he is in left, but that does not make him a good outfielder.
Okay, let me ask you about this Josh Naylor trade. Because, again, for people who don't know, Josh Naylor is a first baseman DH who has played for the Arizona Diamondbacks. He's also played for the Cleveland Indians in his career, probably most notably. Had a year in 2024 where he hit .243 with 31 homers, 108 RBIs. OPS was .776. Made the All-Star team. This year he's hitting .292 for the Diamondbacks. So pretty good bat. Not exactly what you'd call a world-class body, but whatever. He can hit.
He's a fat ass, man.
Okay, left-handed.
He's a fat ass.
Baseball player.
Yep, boy, is he ever. Looks like a softball player, one of the worst bodies in the game.
He's about 5'6", 280.
Okay, so the Red Sox allegedly were interested. Jeff Passan, among other people, said that Boston was a great fit for Naylor. He went to the Seattle Mariners for a couple of minor league pitchers. Could the Red Sox have made the same deal?
Yes, of course they could have. So
were the prospects that went from Seattle to Arizona, were they high-level prospects?
They were not. So it was Seattle's 13th prospect and their 16th prospect. So that's a doable trade. The important thing to note about this deal, though, is Arizona did get back a lefty, their 13th prospect, who's kind of interesting, bullpen arm type. He actually just made the big leagues, young guy who's kind of shot through the system. I don't think they think there's much of a ceiling for this guy, but he is a projectable, cost-controlled pitcher for the next 6 years who is a big leaguer essentially right now. The Red Sox don't really have any of those guys, Maz, because Chaim Bloom hated pitchers and didn't draft a single one. He drafted one pitcher in the top 100 over the course of 4 drafts. So the Red Sox have had for a number of years a problem, I would assume, in making trades because they don't have as many high quality, they just don't have that pitching depth that other teams are always looking for to sweeten a deal or to make a deal happen.
Which is what Breslow's trying to build now.
And so that's very noteworthy, that the way he's approached these last few drafts, because I do think you need guys like this. This Brandon Garcia, there's nothing special about him. he's fine. He's kind of interesting. You might be a decent bullpen arm, but you do need guys like that to sweeten deals, to make trades happen, and the Red Sox just haven't had that. So again, if we're talking about putting this into the model, let's just say for the sake of discussion, instead of you getting Seattle's number 13 and 16 prospects because you don't have that pitcher to trade, maybe Arizona's asking for your 7 and 11 prospects, and you don't want to do that because the model says, well, this isn't worth it for a player of Naylor's quality and he's a rental. So would he have been a fit? Yes. I'm not a huge Josh Naylor guy.
Neither.
He can't hit lefties. He's a fat ass. But he's better than Abraham Toro, so I'll give you that. Would I have been willing to give up, my number 8 prospect, who's probably like Brandon Clark or somebody like that? Brandon Clark. Would I have been willing to give something like that up for Josh Naylor for a stretch run? I probably would. But again, the model probably says no at that point because you don't have the pitchers to trade.
Okay, now the Yankees traded also for a corner infielder, albeit a third baseman, right-handed hitter, also from Arizona, correct?
No, from Colorado.
I'm sorry. Colorado is correct. So, what about the Yankee deal? Is that a deal the Red Sox could have made? Should they have made it?
So, again, McMahon probably doesn't interest me as much. The Red Sox don't need a third baseman. I mean, could the Red Sox have made this deal? Yes. Here's what I'd say, though, Maz. The market's starting to develop. Where are the Red Sox? Trades are starting to happen. Typically, the longer you wait, the higher the price becomes. And I don't want to hear from this team a week from now, well, did you see the prices? The prices got too high. Okay, all right, I've heard that every year for the last 5 years. So it's not that I specifically wanted Ryan McMahon. It's not that I specifically wanted Josh Naylor. Naylor's more of a fit than McMahon. And again, I'm not crazy about Naylor. I want somebody. I mean, is that too much to ask for?
No.
So, I mean, the market is still developing, but I'd rather be the team that sets the market, and even if you have to overpay, which is the Dave Dombrowski model, like get your shopping done early, let's win baseball games now, let's get it done so we're not sitting there on trade deadline day hoping something breaks our way. And it kind of feels like that's the way the Red Sox have approached deadlines in recent years. It's like, well, let's see what's left and let's see what the prices are. Don't be afraid to set the price. Get your deals done now. Get your shopping done early. I want something done for the Red Sox in the next 24 to 48 hours. They should not be waiting around until the deadline.
So this is part of my frustration, and I suspect part of the frustration with most fans out there. I don't feel like they have the appetite to make any deal in which they have to bleed a little. And if you want to make a good deal, you got to bleed. That's what makes it a good deal. And I don't feel like the Red Sox want to do that. So, Matt, as always, thanks for joining.
Always fun to be here, Maz.
Very much a big help for me on this Friday night. Tough night to do the show tonight. It's middle of summer, Friday night. Red Sox are off last night. Like it is a little bit of a lull.
I've worked with you, for 12 years now, Maz? When you texted me today at 3:30 asking me if I was in, I could sense that. I could read the panic through that text. I was happy to be here.
It wasn't panic. It was irritability, frankly. I thought, how the hell do you do this show on a night like this?
No Stu, no Milliken. Maz, I would not let you down.
Could have used the Dodgers last night. We could have used them in town last night. Anyway, thanks to Ryan and Matt back there for the help. McCarthy will have your headlines here momentarily. Don't go anywhere. Everyone have a great week, and we'll catch you next time on the Baseball Hour.
This is the Baseball Hour on the Sports Hub.
Hey, it's Maz for Bigelow Tea. And you know what I like more than anything? Having a choice, options, flexibility. So what does that have to do with Bigelow? Well, Bigelow has lots of options, lots of different choices. Something everyone can enjoy. English breakfast tea, chamomile, lemon ginger, green tea, caffeinated, decaffeinated. You get the idea. So no matter what your preference is, do what we do in our home and grab a mug full of your favorite Bigelow tea and tea proudly. That's Bigelow Tea, the official hot tea of the Boston Red Sox.
Town Fair Tire sells all the name brand tires, and we sell them all at the guaranteed lowest price. Plus, because Town Fair Tire also gives you more free services than all the other tire dealers, nobody beats
Town Fair Tire. Hey, so, and are you heading down the basement to watch the game, and bam, that smell hits you harder than a line drive off the bat? You got a mold problem there, my friend, and that's when you call my guy Chris over at Green Home Solution.